the Wessex Way Monster. In England, a mysterious creature was caught on a motorway camera. A strange humanoid named variously as the Wessex Way Monster, the Wessex Way Creature, or the Highway Crawler of England was seen on camera on an English highway sometime around the year 2007. Images in the form of still photos show what looks to be a head that is similar to a human, complete with legs and an upper torso, and it can run on all fours. Curiously, inhabitants in the region claimed that authorities began to investigate after this tape was made public, and further reports of sightings came from people who claimed to have seen a four-legged monster that bore a striking similarity to a werewolf. After the video was made public, investigations produced little results, but oddly, several people came forward and described how they had seen weird animals prowling the area in the early 2000s. According to the eyewitnesses, the creature resembled a giant hairy humanoid, or werewolf. It could move at extremely high rates and was frequently seen leaving a scene before a good photo could be taken. The creature's rapid speed caused some to speculate that it wasn't natural, pointing out that it might have been a baby deer crossing the road at the time. However, others who took screenshots of the creature claimed that it didn't resemble any of the local wildlife and that it had what appeared to be arms and legs. According to one cop who supposedly came forward and recounted how they had seen strange creatures around the area, the Wessex Way region in Devon is home to numerous unusual species, and locals have been coming forward for years to describe their mysterious experiences. Mrs. Green, one of the eyewitnesses, reported seeing a big, bipedal, canine-like creature with broad shoulders, robust, muscular legs, and a pointed nose that resembled the Wessex Way Monster. It was further described as having blazing eyes and sharp teeth, being between 6 and 7 feet long and appearing to be able to stand on its hind legs. Its fur was either grey, black, or brown. The video is not very clear, but you can clearly see that its hind legs are not like a deer's, and its upper body and shoulders also seem excessively large, indicating that this creature is more humanoid. Those who have seen the footage have suggested that it could be a skinwalker, wendigo, or even a wild man. The Monkey Man of New Delhi. The Monkey Man phenomenon that gripped New Delhi in the summer of 2001 remains one of the most intriguing and bizarre episodes in the city's history. The sudden appearance of a mysterious, monkey-like creature terrorized residents and sparked widespread panic, leading to a series of dramatic encounters between police and the alleged creature. The events that unfolded during this tumultuous period shed light on the complexities of urban folklore, mass hysteria, and the human psyche. An ape-like creature known as the Monkey Man of New Delhi frightened India's capital city of New Delhi. That May, rumors of an odd, nocturnal, monkey-like creature that was attacking people started circulating in New Delhi. Although eyewitness reports were frequently contradictory, they generally described the creature as standing 4 feet tall and having thick black hair, and it was said to have had metal claws, trousers, and bright red eyes that occasionally showed through goggles. It also wore a metal helmet. Some say the Monkey Man is Bigfoot, while others say it's an embodiment of the Hindu god Hanuman. Many people claim to have been scratched, and in a panic brought on by the Monkey Man, 2 or 3, depending on certain accounts, even perished when they leaped from building tops or plunged down stairwells. Police eventually even released impressions created by artists in an effort to apprehend the creature. It was said that if one shines a bright light in the Monkey Man's face, it will dispel his night vision glasses and cause him to flee. Additionally, it was believed that dousing the primate with water would disable his motherboard heart. Likewise, it was thought that the monster might become invisible by simply pressing a single button on his panel. According to these views, the Monkey Man is more mechanical than natural. 15 individuals sustained injuries on May 13, 2001, varying from scratches and bites to bruises. On May 15th, a pregnant woman fled after hearing neighbors yell that they had seen the Monkey Man and tumbled down several stairs. Additional reports of sightings surfaced in Kanpur in February 2002 and New Delhi in July 2002, with the latter reporting a contraption like a monkey and glimmering with red and blue lights. An unidentified eyewitness even asserted that the Monkey Man had stolen his mobile phone. The response from authorities was swift, but initially ineffective. Police received hundreds of distress calls and deployed additional patrols to investigate the reports. As quickly as it had begun, the Monkey Man phenomenon gradually faded away by midsummer. The number of reported sightings decreased, and public interest shifted to other topics. The Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. The Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp is a lizard-like humanoid entity described as standing at a height of 7 feet, having been completely green in color and possessing the rough, textured skin of a lizard. The primary sightings of the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp describe the creature as having snake-like scales covering its body from head to toe and 3 large, knob-like fingers on each hand. Some of the reported witness sightings claim the creature to have glowing red eyes that appear to illuminate, whereas others have described the creature's eyes as reflective, similar to that of a wild animal. First sighted back in 1988, a series of sightings would persist in the area of Scape Ore Swamp, South Carolina, over the span of several years before efforts by the local military would prevent cryptid researchers from investigating the sightings any further. Back in 1988, a 17-year-old local resident, known as Christopher Davis, claimed that, as he was driving near the location of Scape Ore Swamp, he struck a creature that was described as being green, completely wet, 7 feet tall, had the skin of a lizard, possessed 3 fingers on both hands, had wide, glowing red eyes, and was covered from head to toe in snake-like scales. This creature would later be referred to by locals as the Lizard Man of the Scape Ore Swamp, and further sightings of the creature would continue for years to come. Though many claimed to have spotted the creature, even occasionally having direct encounters, on the roads located nearby the Scape Ore Swamp, others claimed that they had even encountered the Lizard Man more than a few miles away from the swamp. This would eventually lead to so many sightings of the creature that a local radio station offered a $1 million reward to anybody that could capture the creature alive and bring it to the radio station. Though many people believed it to be nothing more than a publicity stunt, the seriousness of the creature would later be the focus of the nearby military base, as an airman known as Kenneth Orr, that worked at the nearby Shaw Air Force Base, would go on to file a police report claiming that he had encountered the Lizard Man located off of Highway 15 and fired at the creature. He believed he had wounded the creature, but couldn't locate its body. Despite the police report and the proof of a number of scales being found at the location, Kenneth Orr was arrested for claims of an unlawful carry of a weapon and attempting to file false police reports. This has led many to believe that though the military may be actively hunting and looking for the creature, they are also working to cover up the existence of the lizard men to prevent mass panic. Although the two creatures don't share a lot of the same physical characteristics, many cryptid researchers have often compared the reports surrounding the Thetis Lake Monster sightings with that of the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. Similar to the Lizard Man, the Thetis Lake Monster is a reported lizard man-like entity, but a large protruding horn rising from the top of his head. Additionally, the two creatures made their appearances roughly around the same time, back in the mid-1970s. Although far smaller and more frog-like in design, the Thetis Lake Monster also appears to inhabit an underwater ecosystem. Unlike the Lizard Man, rather than running from confrontation, the Thetis Lake Monster is remarkably aggressive and has attacked several eyewitnesses over the years. According to a report made by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, on the 19th of August in 1972, 2 eyewitnesses would report a lizard man encounter out on Thetis Lake, located near Cottonwood, British Columbia, only a few miles from the Cadborough Bay off Victoria and Vancouver Island. According to the 2 eyewitnesses, 2 boys by the name of Gordon Pike and Robin Llewellyn, the 2 claimed to have seen a 5-foot-tall creature suddenly emerge from the surface of Thetis Lake and chase them onto the shore of the beach. As the creature got close to Robin Llewellyn, the being was believed to have lowered its head and cut Robin on the hand using 6 razor-sharp points that were located on the cranium of the lizard man-like creature. Once injured, the boys would run further away from the beach as they would watch the impossible-to-explain creature slowly return back to the waters and disappear deep into the lake. Shortly after the encounter, the 2 boys would call the local authorities and a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer would arrive at the beach to investigate the claims further. Oddly enough, rather than dismissing the sighting as nothing more than a prank, the officer would document the attack in detail and make special mention of the real wound received by one of the eyewitnesses. The officer would later state that the boys seemed sincere and until they determine otherwise, they have no alternative but to continue their investigation. 4 days following the initial sightings, on the next Wednesday afternoon, on the 23rd of August, the Thetis Lake Monster would be reported once again by independent eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen the lizard-man creature by the shores of the lake. According to the eyewitnesses, 2 men by the name of Mike Gold and Russell Van Nice, the two claimed that while they were at the shores of Thetis Lake, in the recreation area commonly visited by tourists, they noticed a peculiar disturbance in the water across the lake at around 3:30 in the afternoon. The 2 men claimed that as they watched the disturbance in the water, they initially thought that the source could have been a man struggling to swim, as the creature would make it to the shore after seemingly being stuck underneath the surface of the water for an exceptionally long period of time. Once on the shore, the 2 eyewitnesses described the creature as appearing to have had the body of a human being, covered entirely in scales, with the head and face of a monster. Atop the head of the creature was believed to be a razor-sharp horn, or point, with large sharp ears jutting off of the side of the creature's skull. Although it was difficult to accurately see, the men believed that the creature was entirely silver in colour, though admit that the colour could have been caused by a reflection of the afternoon light on the smooth surface of the wet scale. One of the eyewitnesses, Mike Gold, would later provide a statement to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the incident, saying that the mysterious creature came out of the water and looked around. He described the creature as shaped like an ordinary body, like a human being's body, but it had a monster face, and it was all scaly, a point sticking out of its head and great big ears. Although these 2 sightings would be the only known detailed reports surrounding the strange creature, rumours surrounding the Thetis Lake claim that man-sized serpent-like creatures are often spotted in the area surrounding the lake and in the nearby bay. Legends of a monster referred to as the Cadbrosaurus, nicknamed the Caddy, are claimed almost every year in the British Columbian coast, known as the Cadbro Bay, located only a few miles from the Thetis Lake. Although the serpent creature of Cadbro, referred to as the Caddy, is often described by eyewitnesses as being similar in design to the Loch Ness Monster, continued sightings of frog-like and lizard-like humanoids have been made all throughout the surrounding region of the Cadbro Bay. Additionally, during certain months of the year, Thetis Lake directly connects with Cadbro Bay, draining out into the nearby shoreline, allowing a brief moment of connection between the 2 bodies of water. New Jersey Gator Man connection. Researchers often compare the original sightings of the lizard man of Scape or swamp sightings, reported out of the state of South Carolina, to many of the matching details of the New Jersey alligator man, such as the alligator-like appearance of the creature and its reported likeness of standing upright on its hind feet, or its behavior of running away when confronted or spotted by a human being, as well as its height and its body, both of which are covered from head to toe in scales. This has led many cryptid researchers into believing that the cryptid responsible for the New Jersey Gator Man reports is also responsible for the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp reports of South Carolina. During the summers of the early 1970s, a series of reports would be made by independent eyewitnesses around the southern tip of New Jersey, claiming to see what eyewitnesses would describe as a humanoid-shaped alligator man swimming near the shores of the Newton-Lafayette area. Known as the New Jersey Gator Man, according to the hundreds of residents over the course of 5 years, reported between 1973 to 1978, the man-like alligator would be seen swimming in the water, diving down and staying submerged for long periods of time and leaving the water, walking on the shore on its 2 hind legs, similar to that of a man. During the first year of the creature's appearance, back in 1973, a reporter would investigate the sightings of several eyewitnesses who claimed to have been walking by the shores of the Newton-Lafayette area when they noticed what they originally believed was a flailing man in the water. Calling out to the man out of fear that he could have been drowning, the creature would come closer to the shores, only to be revealed as a scaled humanoid creature estimated to have been around 6 feet tall and possessing the head of an alligator. Although the local authorities were uninterested in the reports, the journalist would publish his story in a local newspaper, giving the creature its iconic name and comparing its existence to an ancient Native American story in the region. According to the Lenni Lenape Native American tribe, an ancient legend of a man-sized fish roaming near the shores of the New Jersey area described a similar creature believed to have been a scaled monster. The legend would claim that though the fish was far larger than any known natural species and easy to spot in the water, its size made it impossible to catch and proved to be far too dangerous to ever try to hunt, with the cunning nature of the creature being far more terrifying than its size. It is believed that the New Jersey Gator Man sightings are similar to the ancient Lenni Lenape legends. The reports of the New Jersey Gator Man would reach their climax by the summer of 1977, when a scientific researcher would provide an interview with the local newspaper confirming the existence of a gator man-like creature living near the New Jersey coastline. According to the reports, a New York State conservation naturalist by the name of Alfred Hulstruck would claim that a creature described as a scaled, man-like creature that appears from deep within the waters exists near the state's southern tier. Alfred Hulstruck would also claim that the primary reason for the creature's appearance was due to man-made ecological disasters in the region. Although the cause was unknown, Hulstruck believed that the red algal blooms caused by many of the questionable practices of the state and local businesses were the primary reason for the creature's sudden appearance, as it was believed that the region the creature most frequented were the algae-ridden waters. Interestingly enough, immediately following the statement by the New York State conservation naturalist, the story of the New Jersey Gator Man would go completely silent, with many cryptid theorists believing that a secret government ban on the topic was enforced. Additionally, it appears that any evidence of the articles were claimed to have been scrubbed from first-hand reports, with mentions to the articles coming only from second-hand accounts. Oddly enough, it has proven rather difficult, or next to impossible, to prove the validity of the story of the original newspaper reports back in 1973, as the only sources of the legends of the New Jersey Gator Man make reference to an unnamed journalist and unknown local newspaper that claimed to have authored the article on the New Jersey Gator Man. Several facts surrounding the second-hand accounts are verifiable, however, such as the claims of algal blooms near the southern coastal waters of the New Jersey coastline. Even more interesting, matching the direct claims from the New York State conservation naturalist, growing concerns surrounding chronic red-ride blooms are being investigated by the United States government, with fears that the tides have been causing deeper water species to surface or be relocated due to oxygen deprivation. It could be that the surfacing of the humanoid alligator-like creature could have been caused by the sudden oxygen deprivation in the waters caused by the red algal tides, directly matching the claims of Alfred Hulstruck. When researching the history of the pre-colonial period of the New Jersey area, then known as Nova Caesarea, researcher George Dudding found similar stories of what were referred to as a dragon in the river that ran throughout the area of modern-day New Jersey, recorded by local Native American tribes. According to Dudding, the Native American tribes that had resided around the New Jersey region prior to European settlement had inhabited the region for more than 13 years, predating the creation of modern civilization by more than 2,000 years. It was after the end of the last ice age that the tribal group known as the Lenni Lenape Native Americans had begun to occupy the area of the modern-day Lower Hudson River Valley and the Delaware River Valley. Although the exact timeline of their expansion is unknown, it is believed that over the next few thousand years, the group would reach out and settle in areas much further eastward, closer to the Atlantic Ocean, in the area now referred to as the state of New Jersey. It was sometime around the mid-1600s when the first early European settlers would make contact with the Lenape Native Americans, referring to them as the Indian Delaware tribe. It was during this initial contact that many of the Native Americans warned the early European settlers to not build around the Delaware River, referring to the area as the Poquessing, a term that translates to mean the cursed place of the river dragon. Not believing the story, and instead assuming that the legends were mere fabrications created to convince the settlers to live in areas much further away from the Native American territories, many of the European settlers decided to set up their colonies surrounding the Delaware River, given its ease of access for trade, transportation, and fishing. Oddly enough, it appears that the legends told to the settlers by the Native Americans were founded in some form of truth, as many of the early European settlers would tell strange stories of dragons spotted in the rivers, by the rivers, and near the surrounding woods throughout the region. Once the Swedish explorers arrived in the region, the name of the Delaware River was referred to as Drake Kill, a combination of two Swedish words that translates to mean the Dragon River. Today, creeks and tributaries surrounding the Delaware River hold names like Poquessing Creek or Drake Kylan, which translate to reference dragons or man-sized reptiles spotted in the creeks and rivers in those areas. Loveland Frogman. Commonly referred to as the Loveland Frogman or the Ohio Frogman, this creature appears to be a small humanoid creature akin to a frog standing up on hind legs and standing at a height of 3 to 4 feet tall. The frogman is commonly sighted around the state of Ohio and tends to be seen near waterways, rivers, lakes, or ponds. According to eyewitness descriptions of the creature, the Loveland Frogman has a large head compared to its small body size, with large bulging eyes that almost appear to be popping out of their head, similar to that of a frog. Their mouths are typically described as being exceptionally wide, with large razor-sharp teeth that are sometimes seen when the creature opens its mouth. The skin of the creature is commonly described as being greenish or greyish in colour and holds a texture similar to that of tanned leather. In many of the frogman sightings, the creature has been reported as huddling together in groups while holding a glowing, sparkling wand that has been compared to a 4th of July hand sparkler. The 1955 Robert Honeycutt sighting. Back in the early spring of 1955, a 19-year-old man by the name of Robert Honeycutt claimed to have encountered a small humanoid creature while traveling through Clermont County. According to the eyewitness report, the event occurred sometime between March and May when Robert Honeycutt was driving down an isolated road that resides alongside the Little Miami River. At around 3 to 4 in the morning, as Honeycutt reached the Madeira Loveland Pike, he crossed a bridge leading across the Little Miami River into Loveland and noticed what he later described as 3 upright, 2-legged humanoid creatures standing along the side of the road, huddled together in a triangular pattern, fidgeting awkwardly. Due to the high strangeness of the event, Robert Honeycutt slowed his vehicle to a stop and looked at the creatures more closely. According to Honeycutt, he had stared at the creatures for approximately 3 whole minutes, during which time the humanoid beings made no violent movements or quick reactions to Honeycutt's presence. At one point during the event, however, one of the creatures turned to Honeycutt's direction and made a gesture that Honeycutt interpreted as telling him to stay back or keep moving on. Despite this, the entire experience appeared to have been too mundane for Robert, given the sight of the strange creatures that he would later describing as appearing to have been human-like in their appearance, except for the fact that they appeared to have had green skin and large frog-like heads, standing at an estimated height of about 3 to 4 feet. The most dramatic part of their appearance, however, was that they appeared to have been completely bare, with frog-like bodies featuring large mouths, large eyes, and a complete lack of hair. Although it is uncertain how Robert Honeycutt could accurately have gotten a smell from the creatures, he claimed that when he rolled down the window of his car, he could smell what he described as almonds and fresh alfalfa emanating from the creatures. Before he left the area, he remarked that the creatures appeared to have had webbed hands and feet and were holding up what he described as a wand or chain that was giving off blue sparks that appeared similar to those 4th of July fireworks sparkler wands. Unsure of what to do, and now becoming increasingly scared of the strange creatures, Robert Honeycutt drove off and went straight to the local police station in Loveland, Ohio, and told them about what he had encountered. Believing that perhaps Honeycutt was under the influence, they made him perform a field sobriety test, which he passed with flying colours. It was at this moment, though, that Honeycutt learned that several hours had disappeared when questioned if he knew what time it was, and realised that he was suffering from a strange sensation of time loss. Confused as to Honeycutt's behaviour and mental state, the officers told Robert to head home and then sent officers to investigate the bridge. Although the details surrounding the bridge investigation are somewhat conflicting, it is believed that the Loveland Police Department found nothing remarkable at the bridge, but still decided to leave an officer to watch the bridge and the roadways through the night. Some ufologists and cryptid experts believe that Robert Honeycutt's sighting relates more closely with typical UFO and extraterrestrial encounters, as time loss events are very common for alien encounters. It is typically reported that when individuals encounter these mysterious beings, they will have memory gaps or blocks of the event to prevent the event from affecting them, and will often only remember their encounter after repeated sessions of memory recall. Given the strange sparkling wand of the creatures, ufologists believe that the creatures possessed a handheld form of advanced technology more akin to our modern-day smartphones. Due to the fact that this account was recorded back in the early 1950s, such technology would not have been within Honeycutt's mind. The next morning, a more thorough investigation was put into the report, with law enforcement performing a background check into the character of Robert Honeycutt. After a few inquiries, it was deemed that Honeycutt was a reliable witness, as he was a member of the Loveland Civil Defense, an emergency preparedness organization focused on prepping civilians in the event of a nuclear attack during the Cold War. Although it is impossible to confirm, it is believed that the investigation was taken over by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation before being closed and dismissed as a false report or animal misidentification. The 1955 Mangone Frogman sighting. 2 months following the Robert Honeycutt Frogman sighting, another sighting would take place in the summer of 1955 around the same area. According to a witness referred to as Emily Mangone, she and her husband claimed to have been awakened in the night by barking dogs. Worried that the dogs could have been attacked by a wild animal, the couple got up and looked out the window into the backyard, where the dogs had been sleeping. It was at this moment that the couple noticed what they described as a 3-foot-tall, humanoid-shaped creature standing in their backyard, seemingly covered with leaves and mud. Curious and slightly frightened by whatever was standing in their backyard, the couple quickly turned on their back porch light to get a better view of the creature, causing the humanoid to quickly run back into the nearby woods and hide there. After watching for several more minutes, the couple believed that maybe they had misidentified a wild animal standing up on its hind legs, and so turned off the back porch light to get ready to go back to sleep. After turning off the light, they watched as the strange creature returned into their backyard, causing their dogs to begin barking again. Fearing that the creature was some kind of impossible-to-explain threat, the couple quickly called the Loveland Police Department and reported a strange man or creature was standing in their backyard harassing their dogs. Although the police department would respond to the call as quickly as possible, after several more minutes, the creature disappeared and was never seen by the couple again. The Stockton, Georgia sighting. Back on the 3rd of July, during that same year in 1955, another strange Loveland Frogman sighting would take place in the state of Georgia. The oddest part of the encounter is that though the sighting would take place a few states away, the eyewitness to the event was a resident from Loveland, Ohio, traveling down south to Florida. According to a report told by a Mrs. Margaret Simmons, she and her husband were driving from Cincinnati, Ohio, all the way to Florida for a vacation getaway they had planned a few months prior. At around 3:30 in the morning, while passing through Stockton, Georgia, the couple claimed to have seen a group of 4 small humanoid creatures huddled in the middle of the road, preventing them from driving forward and forcing them to a stop in the middle of the lane. According to Margaret Simmons, the 4 entities appeared to stand at a height of 3 to 4 feet tall and were completely grey in skin tone. The most peculiar aspect of these strange creatures, however, were that they appeared to have had frog-like appearances, with one of the creatures holding what appeared to have been a glowing stick in his hand. After swerving to avoid the creatures, stopping and then immediately driving off, Margaret Simmons noticed her husband had been asleep during the encounter, and so woke him up to tell him about what she saw. Curious as to the encounter, the husband attempted to convince his wife to turn around so he could see what the creatures looked like, but Margaret was too terrified to turn back around and investigate further. After a few more minutes, the couple then noticed that several hours had passed without them realizing it, experiencing a form of unexplainable time loss after the encounter. The Ray Shockey encounter. A similar encounter would take place roughly 17 years later in Loveland, Ohio. According to an officer's report, the event would take place on the 3rd of March back in 1972, when an officer by the name of Ray Shockey would have a strange encounter with frog-like humanoid entities at around 1 in the morning. As Ray Shockey was driving down Riverside Road toward the small town of Loveland, he was making a slow turn into town on an icy road when he noticed what he described as a small humanoid creature lying at the side of the road at the intersection of Twightwee Road. Originally believing that the creature was a dog lying down in the snow, the officer slowed down to check on the animal to see if it was okay when he realized that the creature was not a dog. Suddenly, the creature rose out of the ground and stood up on 2 feet and appeared to have been some humanoid animal impossible to identify. The officer estimated that the creature most likely stood at about 4 feet tall and weighed between 50 to 75 pounds at most. Its body lacked any type of hair or fur and was instead covered in a bumpy, leathery skin that would fold or be smooth in different areas. The most bizarre features that the animal had, however, was its strange head that appeared to be a mix of a frog or lizard face with legs that appeared to be longer than its arms. Once the officer made direct contact with the creature, the frog-like entity jumped up onto the car, then ran towards the guardrail that wrapped around the road and jumped off the ledge, running into the nearby woods and waterways, passing over the embankment and disappearing in the Miami River. Frightened by the sighting, Officer Ray Shockey immediately drove to the Loveland police station and reported the encounter to fellow police officer Mark Matthews. After describing his encounter in detail, Mark Matthews refused to believe the encounter and so drove back to the site of the encounter with Ray Shockey to find further evidence of the event. Once the two officers returned, tracks leading down into the embankment because apparent and strange scratch marks located on the guardrail led Matthews to believe that a large animal must have damaged the rail sometime earlier in the day. Oddly enough, less than 14 days following this incident, Officer Mark Matthews himself would have his own encounter with the Loveland Frogman. According to a report made by Officer Matthews, on the 17th of March back in 1972, Mark Matthews was driving along a road leading out of Loveland, Ohio, when he spotted what he originally believed was an animal that had passed away lying on the side of the road. Fearing that the body could cause an accident, Officer Matthews pulled over to the side of the road and got out of his vehicle in the hopes of dragging the carcass out from the middle of the road and onto the road berm. Once Matthews stepped out of his car, however, the creature immediately stood up and stared at the officer intently. According to Matthews, the creature appeared exactly like how Officer Ray Shockey had described his encounter, standing roughly 4 feet tall, with leathery skin and the head of a frog. The only additional difference that Mark Matthews noticed was that the creature appeared to have had a long leather tail, similar to a lizard's. As the two stared at each other, the creature made a sudden move towards the officer, scaring him into pulling out his pistol and firing at the entity. Although the officer fired several rounds, either the officer missed each shot or the bullets had no effect on the animal as it ran away and leapt over a guardrail, disappearing into the nearby waterways. Matthews would later describe in his report that he believed someone had hit the animal prior to the encounter, given the fact that it appeared to have moved with a lift and was found in the middle of the road, incapacitated when he first spotted it. Unfortunately for both officers, Ray Shockey and Mark Matthews, their official police reports of spotting the strange Loveland Frogman would end up causing a great deal of ridicule on their part, affecting their careers and public images for the rest of their lives. Despite the many interviews insisting that the creature appeared to be a 4-foot-tall, humanoid frog-like entity, with drawings of the creature confirmed by both officers, the officers would later change their stories to avoid ridicule and claim that they had witnessed nothing more than a pet iguana that must have escaped captivity. It is uncertain whether or not the officers changed their story to avoid ridicule or due to outside forces requiring their cooperation in a cover-up of the events. The Loveland Farmer sighting. During the same month as the Loveland Police Department sightings, a farmer claimed to have directly encountered 4 frog-like or lizard-like humanoid creatures wandering through his farm that resided adjacent to the Little Miami River in Loveland, Ohio. Although the dates surrounding the incident are not specific, the farmer recalled that the event happened sometime in March of 1972 and believed that the creatures were some undiscovered native species to the area, given how they walked around the farm and near the open waterways. According to the farmer, the creatures stood at about 3 to 4 feet in height, had greenish-grey skin with large bulging eyes that almost appeared as if they were popping out of their heads. The farmer also described that the creatures had large mouths that appeared to be filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. As the farmer attempted to approach the creatures, he watched as they ran off into the Little Miami River and disappeared into the nearby waterways, submerging into the water and vanishing from sight. Later, during that same month, The farmer would claim to have seen the creatures once more standing around the river embankments as he was riding his bicycle into town. Due to having seen the creatures multiple times near the river, he assumed that the creatures must have been a native large amphibious species of alligator or lizard of some kind. Milton Lizard Monster, Milton, Kentucky. According to the original Milton Monster Lizard report, roughly 100 miles away from the small town of Loveland, Ohio, where sightings of frogmen had occurred shortly before, a sighting of a giant lizard-like creature was made in the state of Kentucky near the small town of Milton in Trimble County. According to the eyewitness report, the co-manager of the Bluegrass Body Shop vehicle repair business, a man by the name of Clarence Cable, claimed to have come into direct contact with a giant lizard-like creature hiding behind one of the wrecked vehicles in the Milton junkyard. Cable described the strange lizard creature as having huge bulging eyes like that of a frog, with an elongated leathery skinned body that stretched to be more than 15 feet in length. According to Clarence Cable, the creature's skin appeared to have been an off-white colour, covered from head to toe in thin black and white stripes that appeared to have been covered in speckles, estimated to have been about the size of a quarter. Running back inside the shop to grab his gun, Cable quickly got out of the area where the lizard was hissing and returned with his rifle ready to defend himself. Unfortunately, by the time he returned, the creature had already disappeared and no traces of its existence could be found. Shortly after the event, Clarence would go on to tell his brother about what he saw, describing the creature as being nothing short of an overgrown monster, but the brother thought that maybe Clarence was playing a prank on him and so refused to believe that the creature was real. A few days later, however, Clarence's brother would have a direct encounter with the creature himself. On the 27th of July, 1975, Garrett Cable claimed to have come across a large lizard monster that crawled out from underneath a wrecked automobile that fit his brother's description, appearing to hiss at him, revealing a forked tongue. After several attempts were made by the creature to attack Garrett, the man soon realized that his brother's encounter was not an over-exaggeration. Scared for his life, Garrett ran inside the body shop and warned his brother that the creature returned, causing the two brothers to quickly arm up and return to the area with their rifles. Once they returned, the creature was nowhere to be found and appeared to have abandoned the area for the time being, similar to the previous encounter. It was at around this time that the two brothers would begin spreading the story of their strange encounter with locals, causing the local news outlets to pick up the story for their papers. 2 days later, Clarence Cable would spot the large, lizard-like creature once more within the Milton junkyard. This time, Clarence was ready with his rifle and attempted to scare the creature away once and for all. In order to get the creature to come out more into the open, Clarence began throwing rocks at the large lizard, striking it several times on the head. Oddly enough, rather than crawling out from underneath one of the wrecked vehicles, the lizard stood up on 2 legs after being pelted by the rocks and started running away into the nearby forest. Believing that this creature was a humanoid monster of unbelievable proportions, Clarence opened fire on the beast as it ran towards the nearby woods, but realized the bullets had no effect on the creature. After reporting the third sighting to a local news outlet, the creature was known locally as the Milton Monster, or the Milton Lizard, and nearby hunters attempted to track down and hunt the beast, fearing that it might attack a person if left to itself. On the 7th of August of that year, the local news would publish an article in the Trimble County Banner titled, "Monster Still Sought." Unfortunately, the creature was never seen or located again. Interestingly enough, many of the townsfolk accepted that the creature was real, given the fact that local town legend dating back as early as the 1800s reported an encounter with a creature fitting the same description as those reported by the Cable brothers. Whether the legend is true or not is unknown, but according to some old documents recorded sometime during the 1800s, there exists a legend near the area of Milton that claims a large lizard of about 14 to 16 feet visited the area and attacked a group of children. According to the legend, 2 boys who lived nearby in the small town decided to go fishing in the nearby river in the summer in order to catch some fish for dinner to take home to their parents. As they were hanging around the embankment of the river, splashing each other and playing in the water while fishing, one of the boys noticed what appeared to have been a large log floating nearby. Believing that the log was nothing more than an old tree that had gotten swept by the river, The kids paid no attention to the floating entity until it came too close for them to get away. In one short moment, the floating log seemed to become a large reptile creature that attempted to swallow one of the boys and hold him in its mouth to carry him away down the river. Hearing the screams, passing adults quickly ran down into the river and began fighting with the large reptile, forcing the animal to release the boy from its mouth and bringing the children out of the river to safety. Rather than be deterred, however, the creature went underwater and travelled to a nearby tree that was described as being an estimated 26 feet in circumference and hid underneath the tree to attack any passerbyers. Fearing that the creature would attack again, several men started to cut down the tree to get to the animal before anyone else could get hurt. But once the tree was cut down, the large reptile emerged from the tree and was reported as running away on 2 feet, standing at a massive 14 to 15 feet in height as it travelled down into the river and disappeared into the nearby woods. The green-clawed beast encounter. According to a report made near Evansville, Indiana, roughly 200 miles from the Loveland Frogman sightings, another similar-looking creature was spotted by 2 women who were swimming together out in the nearby river. According to a woman by the name of Mrs. Naomi Johnson and her friend Mrs. Louise Lamble, the pair had been swimming together in the Ohio River near Godtown, Indiana. Planned as a little summer getaway, Mrs. Johnson brought along her 3 children and planned on having a fun afternoon in the river to help cool off. As she and Louise journeyed further out into the middle of the river at a distance of roughly 15 feet, Mrs. Johnson claimed to have seen some strange humanoid shape swimming in the water beneath her. A few seconds later, Mrs. Johnson was pulled underwater by what she described as a webbed hand and believed that the creature was a strange frog-like humanoid person that appeared to look similar to the creature from the Black Lagoon. Underwater for over a minute, Mrs. Johnson continued kicking at the creature to get away and luckily got loose from its grip as Louise Lamble swam over and attempted to scare away the creature. Immediately, the 2 women and the children got out of the river and claimed they got a good look at the creature in the river, describing it as a green monster covered fin scales with claw-like hands that had 3 fingers on each hand. Several days following the incident, the women came forward about their story and told local news outlets about what they had encountered, supported by the witness testimony of themselves and the children. Shortly thereafter, a man who identified himself as a United States Air Force member claimed that the incident was an issue of national security and must not be spoken about to anyone else. Unfortunately for the strange man in black type character, the news outlets already began running the story, and the encounter would gain local fame and become known as the green-clawed beast. Navajo Rangers report mysterious encounters. In Navajo Nation parks, it is the duty of a Navajo Park Ranger to safeguard and conserve the natural and cultural treasures. A Navajo Park Ranger's specialized tasks may include patrolling and keeping an eye on park areas to guarantee the security of guests, park assets, and animals. Offer interpretive services, such as teaching guests about the history, natural resources, and cultural aspects of the park. Upkeep and repairs should be made to all park amenities, such as campgrounds, picnic spots, and pathways. It's interesting to note that authorities in the Navajo Reservation in the American Southwest have reported seeing unusual things in recent years. Although many officers choose not to discuss their experiences, some have come out in recent years to relate some of the mysteries and legendary stories associated with this place. Situated southeast of Ballard, Utah, this site has gained notoriety in recent years as a portal to another dimension, replete with unexplainable events and paranormal experiences. The Skinwalker Ranch moniker was bestowed to the property because of the overwhelming volume of strange encounters that have occurred there in recent years. It's interesting to note that farmers and landowners have come forward with accounts of encountering creatures that seem to be able to defy all logic, causing them to be driven from their homes out of fear that something might happen to them. It's said that the entire area surrounding Utah and the Navajo Nation has been home to these mysterious creatures. One of the problems is that the cops sometimes face ridicule when they report these kinds of incidents. The Navajo Nation police, on the other hand, have a different perspective and take these sightings and encounters seriously. They will make an effort to investigate and comprehend each report, noting that witnesses are certain that they are witnessing something strange. The officers also assert that legends have a deep historical connection to the area and should be taken seriously. The Navajo Nation Police Department has stated that each person's interaction would be handled seriously and that they encourage people to come forward with their encounters. According to a Navajo ranger, there have been reports of unusual dog-like animals seen all throughout the region. They have been observed to run at very high speeds and resemble humanoids with dogs in appearance. Speaking candidly about some of the experiences they've had while on the job, a Navajo ranger mentioned that he once saw something running beside his car while traveling through Crown Point. He claimed that, suspecting it was an injured animal, he had slowed down to get a better look at what it was. But he soon noticed he was traveling at 30 miles per hour, and he saw this thing could keep up with him. The ranger claimed that he saw what appeared to be a gigantic dog in his rearview mirror and that it ran to the passenger side, bumping the car. He moved to the right at this point to get a closer look at it, and all he could say was that it resembled a gigantic wolf. He then said that after pulling to the side and applying a strong brake, the monster ran in front of his car. At that moment, he turned on the full headlights to get a closer look at it. The ranger calculated that the creature must have measured about 6 feet in length once it was illuminated by the headlights. The ranger concluded his account by stating that the creature was just inside the full beams for a few seconds before darting out of sight. He claims that he had no idea what this thing was even now, but if he were to characterize it, it would resemble a cross between a man and a wolf. Numerous in-depth eyewitness reports from around the United States recount persistent tales of incomprehensible humanoid canine-like beings known as skinwalkers, who exhibit skills that set them apart from other supernatural beings on Earth. While some accounts characterize encounters as terrible attacks, others depict almost otherworldly beginnings. The skinwalker, a humanoid dog-like creature described as standing over 7 feet tall, has been linked to legends dating back thousands of years. It is said to have the face of a wolf, the antlers of a deer, 2 jointed legs, and large claws on each hand. Stories of the skinwalker have been found all over North America. All Native American tribes have similar stories about the skinwalker and its activities, despite their varied religious backgrounds and worldviews. Most of the knowledge about skinwalkers comes from ancient Navajo stories. The Navajo tribe believed that when a member of the tribe committed a social or unforgivable offense, the other tribe members would gather and start a ceremony of cursing the offending individual before permanently expelling them from the group. All by themselves and cursed, it was thought that the exiled tribal members would turn into humanoid dog-like monsters whenever their ravenous appetites started to take over.